Hey, welcome to my channel. Well, in this episode, if you're into the RC hobby, I want to show you something that is so cool that so many people have been waiting for, and here it is. This is the Jumper T18 Pro Radio, and it's pretty much one of a kind. Now, for many of you, you're asking, why is this so amazing? Let me show you. For any of you that fly FPV quads, you recognize this as being an FPV quad, and if you watch any of my videos, you always hear me say, well, I have this drone, and because of the receiver in the drone, I have to use this type of radio. So you're probably wondering, what's a receiver? Let me show you. So in the drone, this tiny little chip here, this little thing here, that's a receiver. It's very small, micro receiver, and it picks up the signals from the radio. This is the radio. Now the problem is, currently and in the past, is that, say I had a receiver from the brand name Spectrum. Well, I have to use a Spectrum radio. So because of that, check this out. When I fly RC planes or RC quads with a Spectrum receiver in them, I have to use a Spectrum radio like this. This is very popular. This is a DX6, one of my favorite radios. If I need more channels on the radio, because there's more things to control on the object I'm controlling, I need a bigger radio, and this is a big radio by Spectrum again, so I have to have the Spectrum receiver talking to this radio and this radio talking to the Spectrum receiver. I can only buy from this company, and I have to pay top dollar. This is expensive. It's like $600 or more dollars. Now, if the receiver in my quad or plane is by another company like FR Sky, Fly Sky, then I have to use a different radio that matches their receiver. So you'll see me a lot of times flying a drone and I go, because this drone has an XM Plus receiver, I have to use my QX7 radio, which looks like this. So this radio will work with the receiver in this drone. So every time you see me doing a review, I'm changing radios. Even big name companies like DJI with their FPV air unit will make their own radio. And this is an FPV radio from DJI. It only works with the DJI FPV air unit. So when you see me flying drones that are with digital display and all this other great thing and a long range of 4 kilometers, I'm using the DJI radio with that. So look at how many radios I have. So the reason this here Jumper T18 is so popular is because they've sort of cracked the code. At least some people have cracked the code, and they stuck a 5-in-1 module in here. So in other words, for about 90% of the planes and the drones with different receivers, cars, boats, anything on the market, you can bind it with this radio. You don't need all the separate radios and have to pay big bucks. This is not expensive. That is what is amazing with this in the year 2020. Let me show you this radio up close. Here we go. So here we go. Here's the Jumper T18 Pro. At least mine's the Pro that arrived. And this is the box it came in. You can see the features right there. Stop the video if you want to read them. Inside the box was a set of stickers, Jumper lanyard, USB cable, a really nice case for the Jumper radio, and of course inside we'll have the radio. Here it is right here. Also inside this case came a few extra components, and I'll show you those now. A foam sticker that you'll put on the back of your battery bay to hold it in tight. Some springs, screws, and plastic for your gimbals if you want to modify them. Now this is a brand new unit, so let's remove the plastic. Some plastic on top, get rid of that. And we're left with a Jumper T18 Pro, which looks pretty nice with the carbon fiber look to it. It's not very thick, and well, here, let me go over this really quick for you. All right, powered on. You have 2 power buttons. I have no idea. I think it's just because of thumbs. Maybe hold it in one hand this way, one hand this way. So press 1, and we'll get OpenTX. It will power on. It does have audio. There's a big speaker right in the center. You can see we have a 4.3-inch IPS LCD display, which is really nice. You don't see that on too many radios, and it is very bright. If I move a joystick, there we go. We go to full brightness as soon as you touch something. It never goes off. It stays on all the time. And to make matters more interesting, it's like I'm using a MacBook here. Look at everything is lit up. Everything around here is lit up, all your switches. So I don't know if maybe they pictured people flying at night or something, or in a dark auditorium. I'm not really sure. Now, if you currently own a Jumper radio, well, then you'll be very used to the configuration and as well the interface. So you have a lot of 3-position switch. You have your 2 positions here. You have 3 here. I know it's going to keep talking because I have a model on here. See, there's going on. 3 switches. Yeah, I know. Momentary switch back here, more 3-position switches here. And of course, across here, Jumper radios have this. This is a 6-position switch. So you could just press these and pick which position you want it to be in. I don't use any of that because I fly FPV quads. Plus you have 2 dials here, and they do have a center position. and they're pretty nice. Also, a lot of people do not like this, but I never use this, so I don't know. They have slider dials here. They're pretty loose. They're not really, they do stick in the center, but that's probably why people have a little bit of complaints about it, because you might knock them with your hand. But I have no use for those, so I don't use them. And you have one on this side too. And if we flip the radio around to the back, we see these really nice rubber grips here. We see that the handle is foldable, so that you can fit it in the case and also put it in your backpack or whatnot. Same as the antenna up here. You can bend it up or put it sideways. You can see it says 915 megahertz. It's also an 868 megahertz antenna. So it does support the FrSky R9 long range. Well, at least that's what the instructions say. I don't use that because I fly just normal quads. So I use the 2.4 gig radio antenna thingy, and that is built in here. It's non-adjustable. It's in here someplace. So, you know, if you want an antenna on the outside for your 2.4 gigs, well, this one doesn't have one. Now you're going to ask, with the built-in antenna, does it affect your flight distance? Well, not really, as long as you don't cover this up, you know, as long as you don't have obstacles in front, because there's no diversity like one here and one here. And speaking of long range, you can actually put a crossfire module in there. It does support it. Now, this does not come with a battery. You have to supply your own power, and it takes the old 18650 batteries, and they go in here. I don't have any 18650 batteries, so let me get that open. I'll show you. So I just used one of my batteries. As long as it's a 7.4 volt, I just plug that in. You can see it plugs down there. Also down here, you can see the micro SD card. You can take that out and put more files on it and do all sorts of cool things to it. So back to the battery. I don't have 18650 batteries. So they give you this battery holder that goes in here, a little battery bay. And I don't have 18650 batteries, so I placed these smaller batteries, which are 18500 batteries. And you see they're shorter, so I have a nut, a bolt and a nut on each end to make contact. It works great. Now, one thing to note, you have two power switches to turn it on or off, so you have a choice. You can press this and it goes off nice and slow. Or watch this. So say you're on and you want to turn this off.
Mode cruise.
And you want to,
mode.
yes, stop talking. And you want to turn this off faster, press both of them. Watch what happens. That's it. It's off. And now I'll put the included battery tray, plug that in for power. It's just a normal balance connector that connects down there. Put this in that way. You'll see it fits nice. And that little piece of foam I showed you goes right here. I don't have mine on yet. And it holds the battery tray in tight so it doesn't rattle around like that. And we should have power.
Welcome to OpenTX.
All right, now I'll quickly show you the interface so you can get up and running with this baby. So this is your back button to get out of any menu. This is your scroll wheel. These buttons on the side, you have your page button, you have your model button, and of course you have your telemetry button, which also does something else, and this is your system settings button. So let's start off with your system settings button. Press that, and you can see everything that's happening on the screen. I'll bring it close. There we go. Now to move through all your settings, just use your page button right here and go through. See on here, I can go down to, I'll scroll down to like images, and these are all the pictures of your planes and your models you can stick on. You can put that micro SD card in your computer and put more on. Just put them in the same directory, hit the back button here. This is also where your firmware is and your sounds and all the other stuff. Normal stuff you use in a radio. So let's go to the next one over. You can see there's your setup, your date, your time, all the good stuff. Go way down here. You can put your volume settings, all the great stuff. This is just setting up your radio. So I'm just going to go through them really quick and I'll bring you back to the main menu. Next, you have your models. I'm only showing one on the screen right now. If I press this in, you can do a model select and it shows I have two models right here. And if you want to select the model, just press in and select model. You can do all these things. Normal stuff you can do. So I can select that model. And to get into the model settings, over here you have a button called model. Hold that down. And now you're into the settings. Ooh, let me get that screen looking good. And this probably all looks familiar to you because it's basically the stuff you would normally use, set up your models. Very straightforward. And use your page buttons to go through. And you'll see it has all the normal stuff that you're used to in your model setup. Goes through. Now your screen right here, this screen here, I haven't done anything to it really. I haven't set anything up. You can set up a lot of cool stuff in that. So press this button, your telemetry button. So at the very top, you see I'm moving through, that's how I want my screen to look. So I have it on that one right now. Let's see, yeah. And you can set up widgets. I'll click that so you see here. Let's say I want to put the timer up at the top. Press that and select widgets, gauges. Let's see, that's a plane. There we go. There's a timer. If I haven't already mentioned it, it's not a touch screen, not yet. In future models, this will be a touch screen. So what makes the T18 so popular is that it has a 5-in-1 multi-protocol module inside to connect to all types of receivers. So let me show you that now. I'll just hit the model button. We'll go in and let's see if my screen shows it here. So you put this on multi and then you decide which receiver you have. So in this case, this model here, I put an FR Sky D16. So let me go over to the FR Sky. And I'm just going to spin this and look at all the different types of receivers you can put in there. So you can do Spectrum, you can do FR Sky, you can do Fly Sky. Yeah, it's going into binding mode. You can do quite a bit. Like I'm turning one way. If I turn another way, it just goes and goes and goes. So if you're capturing all of this with your eyeballs, you might have some of these receivers and go, hey, that works with mine.
RF signal critical.
Yeah, well, I know because I'm playing with this thing. Now let's talk about the gimbals. So on this here T18 radio, it has RDC90 gimbals. And if you get the light version or the standard version, it has Hall effect gimbals, which are really darn decent. So all in all, really good gimbals. I'm just going to test out how the gimbals feel here. I'll just arm this and take it up. There we go. Hold this out front so you can see the gimbals. Very responsive. I can keep the drone in sight in my little camera here. Yeah, so gimbals are pretty decent. No complaints there. So all in all, a really cool radio. Got it. On the very top of the unit, you have a little piece of rubber here. You pull that back, you can see a USB-C connection, and you can also see a little hole for a trainer. So this USB-C is for firmware updates and also to connect to a computer to use this to run simulators. Unfortunately, you cannot put a USB-C cable in there and charge the batteries in the back. It is not designed for that. Now the radio is really well balanced and the lanyard shows it. Watch this. If I lift it, it is really good. It stays right in the center just the way you want it. And you'll notice the extra holes added just in case you add a crossfire module in the back and the weight changes, so you can move the lanyard a little bit up or a little bit back. And now to show you that you can connect to all types of receivers, this is a new quad that HGLRC sent me, and it's a Whoop. It's 85 millimeters. It does have an XM Plus receiver in it, and watch this. Put it down. I've already done the binding, so if I go and do the arm switch,
Flight mode cruise.
there we go. It's on, off, and I think I even put a beeper on it. There we go. Beeper's there. Now you're saying that's pretty cool, but can you connect to a Spectrum? Well, guess what? A Spectrum receiver. I do have one in this old Vortex 150. I don't have a lot of Spectrum quads lying around anymore. So I have done binding with this and it will work. Watch this. So it's just a matter of changing models. Hold that in, model select. I want to pick the Vortex 150 over here. And I've already set it up to bind to a Spectrum receiver. So let's just plug this in and it should bind. There we go. She's plugged in. Just put it over there so I don't hit anything. And to arm it, this is an old Vortex. So in those days, the Vortex, you would arm by taking this joystick and pushing it inward. So watch this. There we go. And to turn it off, there we go. So all in all, this is a radio that's designed for someone who's going to buy just one radio and use one radio, not have multiple radios. So this is the future of radios. This is what we're getting into. The days of having one radio for one receiver, yeah, those days are pretty much gone. This is the way we're going. So what did you think of the Jumper T18? Obviously, if you are going to buy a radio today because you're just starting in the hobby, you're probably going to buy the Jumper T18. You're not going to go buy this one or this one. You'll just stick with the Jumper T18 because it has everything you need. It connects with everything. So if you're starting out with quads and then later you want to do planes and you have different receivers, then you have one radio that didn't cost you much that does everything. Now I looked through the radio and I did not see the DJI option of selecting that sort of receiver in here, so I don't think they've cracked the code yet, but they could in the future and a firmware update could have it in there. So if you want to know more about this radio, I'm a guy who just flies drones and quads, so I just use it for drones and quads. I do not need all the switches. I don't need all the fancy interface. I just need something that connects with all the different receivers, and this does it. If you want to learn more about what this radio does with planes and helicopters and everything else, watch YouTube videos from people who fly planes and helicopters and they'll show you, but for me it's pretty simple. Oh, and it does come with all the voices in it, so it will...
Normal. Mode on. Landing. Mode on.
So it will speak to you. I did not have to put any voices in it. A lot of radios I have to put the voices in. This one already has them in. The only thing you have to add probably is if you want to put your little pictures down here, just put the micro SD card in your computer and put your pictures on it. Then you're all set. It's very easy to set up, very easy to get going. All right, I'm going to put links below to where you can find the Jumper T18. And if you have questions on this radio, post them below. I know enough to be dangerous in the FPV hobby world, and I configured the radio with my tiny little brain, no problem. But anything else that you want to know, if you have a plane and all the weird things with the flaps and all that stuff, don't ask me that because I have no idea. Anyways, guys, take care, and I'll catch you in the next video with many more reviews.